Have you ever seen a check but wondered whether or not you should play it? This is one of the biggest mistakes that chess kids make, and today we're going to solve this mystery once and for all. I'm going to show you when to make a check and when to ignore it. I know it seems like it's halfway to checkmate, but only the masters know when to give check. Here, if you're white, you might be considering the move bishop to b5 check. A lot of kids play this move. Let's take a look at it. If we play bishop to b5 check, what would black do? He's probably not going to move his king. He's probably going to block with something. And you know what? If black blocks with his bishop, we're probably going to end up taking that bishop. And when black takes back, you know what just happened? We just threw a move in the trash can. That's right. Our bishop moved twice. His bishop moved once. And since they're both off the chessboard, it's like giving one move to our opponent for free. Black is actually caught up in development. Black had another good option. He could have also blocked with his pawn. And when he does that, our bishop has to run away. And we just gave black another free move. Sure, this pawn move is not a whole lot, but it is a freebie. That pawn is aiming at the center. The black queen does have a new way to come out. So, you don't want to go giving your opponent free moves, do you? No, I didn't think so. Let's take a look now at all the times in chess that you should give check. I can think of 4 examples. Number 1, give check if you win material. Number 2, if you prevent your opponent from castling. Number 3, when you have to do 2 things at the same time. And finally, you can give check to play defense. Don't believe me? Well, stick around and I'll explain. Let's take a look at that first example. Here, we're going to look at the exact same check. The bishop could still come all the way up the board to the square b5. But you'll notice the difference. Black no longer has a pawn that can block, nor does he have a bishop that can block. What's the only legal move for black? Well, unfortunately for him, he's got to block with his queen. And by now you know, the bishop is worth way less than the queen. This is a great trade for white. So be on the lookout for checks that win material by force. Now the second example, which is very common at the beginning of the game, is to give a check if you prevent your opponent from castling. In this position, white has castled and black is not. But if we give black one extra move, his king is going to castle behind that wall of pawns, and he's going to feel safe. But we're not going to let him do that. Notice the E file has no pawns. That's an open file. Rooks and queens love open files, but I would say rooks love them even more than queens. Let's put the rook on the open file. That actually prevents black from blocking with his queen. If we had checked with our queen, he could have offered a trade. But because we checked with the rook, black would be really silly to put his queen in the way. We'd be very happy to capture. And unfortunately, black has no other good way to block. If he blocks with the knight, well, I count 2 attackers, and I only count 1 defender, and we've already seen a video explaining why 2 is better than 1. So unfortunately for black, in this position he has to move his king, and he will no longer be allowed to castle for the rest of the game. That was a pretty useful check. Now I'm going to show you an example of a check that's going to save you from losing material. Let's give black the next move. Notice here white's actually ahead by a knight, but black's about to get that knight back. The move pawn to d4 forks the rook and the knight. Pretty cool chess move. But if you know about the power of check, you'll be able to save both of your pieces. Why don't you pause your video and see if you can figure out how white can give check to save all of his pieces. Well, there's actually 2 answers. Most of you probably saw rook to e7 check. Now, we're not going to win anything by this move. It's just buying us time. Wouldn't that be cool if you could buy time? When the black king moves somewhere, that gives us time to now save our knight, and white was able to save all of his army. He's still ahead of knight. There was one more example. The knight could have also given check, and when the king moves, now you can save your rook. Notice your knight's actually in danger, so you might want to move your rook to a square like e5, or even b3 would have worked, and now your rook and your knight are both safe. So, sometimes you can give check to buy yourself some time to save your whole army. And lastly, this has nothing to do with check, but a quick review. We could have played rook to d3, that would have pinned the pawn, and if he takes our knight, we could have captured his rook. So, bonus points if you're able to see that move too. And in our final example, I'm going to show you how the power of check can save you from losing the game. Here, if it were black's turn, he would checkmate easily. He's got a battery coming down the a file, so notice the move queen to a1 is checkmate. He can also do the queen and helper checkmate. Remember that one? This time the pawn would be the helper. But we're going to make it white's move. And if white checks in just the right way, he'll be able to save himself. This check is the beginning of a series of checks that will save the game. No matter which way the king goes, we're going to bring the knight back to give another check. He's got to return because our rook is safe, and we just keep giving check. And there's a rule in chess that says, if you get in the same position 3 times, it's a tie. We'll cover that more in a future video. But hey, a tie is a lot better than losing. Now, if he tries to run this way, we're going to give check again. And notice if he goes back to f8, it will actually be the 3rd occurrence of the position. It will be a draw. If he tries to go to the corner to get away, well, that would be really sad for black, because now, for the first time all video, we get to play a checkmate. Alright kids, I hope our ideas are going to help you learn whether or not to play a check in your games. Review this one, because this is a super important idea that comes up many times a game. Know when to give check.